This is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the Town of North Haven.
Good evening. I'd like to call the North Haven Board of Ed meeting to order at 6:40 on February 8th, 2018. We're all back from our paparazzi picture. I just took our picture for the yearbook. We call it paparazzi. And so our number one on our agenda is our consent agenda. Any action items for the minutes of the December 14th, 2017 meeting? Did everyone may have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second? Any discussion? Okay. Then may I have all in favor?
Aye.
All against? Motion passes, so the minutes of the December 14th meeting have been approved. Next on our agenda is the Board of Ed and Student Representatives, and we have Rachel. You want to start?
Sure. Midterms ended last Monday, so the new term started on Tuesday. AP registration forms are due tomorrow for juniors and seniors taking AP classes. For freshmen, juniors, and sophomores, course selection forms are due, or being handed out now, so they're preparing for their classes next year. And within the last month, prom committee was started up, and they're working on finding a prom theme, decorations, and they're working with Project Grad to figure out what people want at Project Graduation. They're willing to give us a lot of, like anything that is plausible that students suggest. The Project Grad is gonna do their best to get it for us. So there was a senior advisory that was dedicated to that, and they a bunch of students, like they gave all the students forms to give suggestions. So we're gonna work through those sometime this week.
Great. I heard last year's Project Graduation was a lot of fun for those boys.
So did it feel funny not having course registration forms?
Yeah.
Hi, so the class of 2019 is in the process of scheduling a gym for a fundraiser, and we're working to get...
I'm sorry, what kind of fundraiser?
Oh, we're just trying to set up a gym for...
Set up.
Yeah.
Gym for a fundraiser.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're also working to get a dodgeball tournament up as soon as possible. And we actually have one problem. So we want to sell food, but we can't for some reason. And we just wanted to ask you guys why we couldn't sell food.
It may have to do with, and we can, the health department and what kind of food you could sell. Were you looking at, like, what were you looking to sell?
We were just looking to sell like packaged food.
Pre-packaged food?
Yeah.
When is it?
Is it during the day?
We're just trying to just put it out there, selling food.
Is it during the day? On a weekend?
After school or at night?
I think we're trying to do it during school and after school.
During school and after school. So during school, I think the problem would be with food services. We have a contract with a company.
Oh, okay.
That's also state law.
Okay.
Yeah.
And after school,
Is it different?
I think that, yeah, the rules are different after school.
Cafeteria after hours?
You're all
Yeah. So maybe we can,
Yeah, let's
We
talk
try to
about that.
compromise
Talk
on
to
that.
Dr. Cronin on that and get more details.
Okay, thank you.
When you want to do that.
Okay.
Okay, but as they just said, by state law and because of the contract we have with food services now, we can't sell outside food within the school
Okay.
during school hours.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all for now.
Okay, great. Well, board members, it's that time of year ago, again. Who's going to volunteer to be in the spelling bee?
you can. Oh, really?
I think you should change it up. I can't, I'm going to be out of town, I believe. So we need 3 volunteers and 1 alternate to be beat on board.
He's on board.
You know what?
Yeah, that's a good
I did it last year.
And you loved it.
No, it wasn't that bad. No, I mean, really.
There is a ringing endorsement.
No, I mean, basically, I was happy. I knew how to spell the first two words, and the third one,
I thought that
So-
the policy indicated that the newest members had to do it.
I'll do it, but I'm a math guy, so.
I'm working it for the foundation, so I,
Make a decision. Well,
I mean, I'll do it.
so far we have Amanda and Dot. And by the way, all of you who listen, you know that we're all in fun. It's just that when we do this, we're embarrassed by how badly we spell. That's what it is.
It's not a math
Oh,
contest.
Brian's never done it.
It's not a math contest.
Brian's never
Oh, what?
Say it.
He's busy saying
How about
something.
one of our,
You have
because
time to
Rachel was
prep.
last
Rachel.
year.
I did do it last
memorize
year,
the
but-
dictionary.
Well, how about Timothy?
So-
Tim, you want to be
Oh,
on
the
our
pressure.
spelling bee?
You could be on the team.
Actually, you know what? When, instead of an application for the students to be board reps, it should be a
I'm
spelling
looking
bee, and we take the two highest. They're the best spellers.
idea.
Really.
Goldie, can I ask you to be the alternate?
With a question, I said yes with a question mark. Yeah, I said yes
Be
with a
passive
question.
aggressive. Be firm, yes? Okay,
Yeah,
thank
sure,
you.
sure.
Okay, so our team name is Bees on Board, thanks to our former board member, Jen Caldwell there. She helped us with that name, and my brother in the past, R&B Ceramic Tile, sponsored our team, so I'll ask him again if he'll sponsor the team.
Do we
Thank
have a
you.
date on this? Did you announce it?
April 27th, I believe it is, Joe.
I think so.
Is that a Thursday?
No, that's a Friday.
It's a Friday.
April, isn't it a Monday? I thought it was April
No.
26th.
It's a-
He's checking.
give me 1 second, I'll find out.
Okay.
April 26th is a Thursday.
I think it is, isn't it? It's always,
Usually
isn't
a
it
Thursday.
Thursday?
I think it's the 26th.
The last Thursday of the month?
That's what I thought it was too.
Then I'm definitely not here that week. Okay. Okay, when he finds that, we'll, from the date.
Yeah, I don't worry about it. We'll find out, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
so Tim, before you leave, if it's okay with you, if you could give one of us your email address, we'll just,
Yeah, sure.
because we have practice sessions once a week.
Every Friday night they practice.
By the way, where does the list come from?
We don't know. It suddenly appears and is given to us.
Oh, okay.
By the,
Yeah, actually, I heard that a person, it might be, I knew Joan Janess had made it,
Joan
had done it
Janess,
at one
yeah.
time. She goes
takes
through
it
and
very
looks.
seriously.
And they started that way. But, you know, again, we're laughing and it's in jest, but it's a wonderful, wonderful night. So much money is raised for education in the town of North Haven, that if anyone can support it. And even if you're not a participant or you don't have a child in any of the schools, it's just fun to go.
It really
Just to
is.
see the costumes that come up and the team spirit from the kids, from their school teachers who are participating. It's a fun, fun night. Secondly, I just wanted to remind everyone that the next play is, I think, the first weekend in March. So think about that before our next board meeting. Which
Les Mis.
Les Mis. I think that's going to be excellent, as everyone knows who's attended our plays.
They're always good.
They're very, very good. And that's all I had for, to go over tonight. My number one priority was that spelling bee. Okay, any unfinished business that we needed to talk about tonight?
So I think, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was interested in following up on the bus monitors training that came up the last board meeting.
Yeah. Tina and I met with the bus monitors soon after, shortly after that board meeting, and we asked them about the training that they received. And it was typically training that was done prior to the start of the school year, and some of it was on lifting, and some of it was on de-escalating a problem, that kind of thing. And so we've spoken with Dana, and she's going to help us put together some training at this point. And then from moving forward, I'm just going to make monitor orientation a part of our opening week of activities, so that we're sure to keep them current with all of their training. So,
Amanda?
At the last budget workshop, we talked about going over the fee schedule for the new fields this month. Is this a good time to do that?
Oh, we have, and interject at any time, we had a meeting, I had a meeting with Bob and Steve Blumenthal, and who else, and Tina, were you in that meeting? Tina? And we talked about the fees and how that should work. The number one thing why we don't have it in place right now is we're still talking about it, and we're in conversation with Mike Frieda about perhaps not doing a fee and the town taking over the replacement cost for town sports. But right now, for spring sports, our teams, our middle school teams and our high school teams, they're basically using those fields Monday through Friday. And we can't rent them out while they're being used by the students.
Right.
So that's where we kind of are right now. Steve did bring me a list of what other schools are charging in town, because some charge for people, like youth sports, et cetera, who use them. But more importantly, where we think we can recoup our money and to put money toward, not recoup our money, where we can put money towards replacement of the fields in 10 to 12 years is when they do the big jamborees. Because when you do the big jamborees, from what I learned and understood, was say you have 15 teams, each one of those teams is paying a fee of $500 to $1,000 just to play on the field. So we're looking at that. We're looking at ways to utilize Battle of the Bands, use our fields for Battle of the Bands. You know how they have the high school band competitions. Let's use the field for that.
Mike had asked if he would leave because he wanted to explore that, right?
Yes.
In terms of the town's responsibilities?
Yes, what he said, he just wanted me to reconfirm that Mike had asked to hold off on it because he wants to look at what the town's responsibilities would be on it. So we're in discussions with that.
Okay.
The only thing that may come up right now for the spring, if our fields aren't being used on a Saturday or a Sunday, will one of the local teams, youth teams, want to use it on a Saturday and Sunday? And we'll get to that, cross that bridge when they come to it. But right now, the way we're looking at it, and after talking to Steve, and the schedule is going to be put into the CIAC? To the CIAC within and the town within the next 2 or 3 weeks, then we'll see if there's any openings for anyone to use the field for the spring.
I started doing a little research based on the workshop, and I found that like other districts in our district reference group are charging anywhere between, $150 an hour to $400 an hour.
You know what, Amanda, I'll make sure you get a copy. Actually, I'll make sure the whole board gets a copy of what Steve Blumenthal put together.
Okay.
Okay, can we make sure to do that?
Yeah, sure.
And the reason why I'm asking is because there was talk of the fields being a profit center for us, and I know that we're in a tight spot from a budget perspective. So if there is an opportunity to have them become a profit center, this would be a great time for that. But if the town is thinking about taking over the maintenance and the potential replacement costs, that's also good news for us.
Yeah, it's where we can put the money for the replacement costs. There. So we'll get you all
We'll
to
send
take a
the
look
fee
at that.
schedule,
Thank you.
the samples. We have West Haven, Cheshire, and one more. that
I think West Haven, Cheshire, we might be in Madison.
Oh, Shelton.
Shelton.
Southington, Milford, Madison, Shelton, they're all,
Yeah.
I was surprised at
Yeah.
$440 an hour.
Yeah, and they charge
$250 an
for
hour.
having a person at every game, so they would charge for, in addition to that, we saw somewhere, they charge to have a custodian at the field, 15 minutes before, during, and at least 15 to 20 minutes. Yeah, it was quite surprising.
In charge of the lights,
Yeah,
$60 an hour
Yeah.
for lights.
for lights, yeah.
Seems to be the going
For
rate.
the sound booth, or the,
We don't have a sound booth though, right?
No, we don't.
not on the turf.
No, we don't have a sound booth there.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other old business? Okay. Let's go to new business. Does anyone have anything new that they want to bring up? Okay. Reports of standing committee. Dot, ACES?
Yes, we met today, And we had an update on the regional special education transportation rather, and there's quite a few districts interested in combining bus transportation for students who go out of district. And because sometimes sometimes it's costly, especially if you're sending the further away they're going to Hartford or whatever. The shoreline, a lot of shoreline towns, Hamden, North Haven, I'm sorry, not North Haven, North Branford, East Haven, the Valley, are interested in forming are being involved in this. They also, what they added is, well, this next year will be, or the 2018-19 will be a pilot year. They're not expecting a lot of savings, but what they're also going to do, which is new, is add, they also kind of be a matchmaker service for people, for districts that are maybe just sending one student a distance away, and if there's a nearby town, kind of just matching up the students in the districts, and having one provider.
We got an email from ACES after
our meeting,
after our meeting this afternoon, and we're going to get on board.
Good.
I forwarded it to Dana, and
Good.
yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Well, I think it's a good idea for two reasons. One, for transportation savings, but then the other hand is, some students are on transportation anywhere from a half hour to 45 minutes, and even longer sometimes.
Than that.
And if they can be in taking a ride with maybe not somebody that lives in their town, but somebody that lives nearby, and they can have the company for a 45-minute ride, I think it's good for them.
Yeah.
So, good, I'm glad,
And
because I know the agreement is 228, but there's also going to be an opt-out clause, so.
he included a list of schools that they're going to be
Community
transporting to,
into,
and that many of those schools would serve us well.
Right, they asked, and I wrote down a couple, and I knew that there was 3 of them that we were, had students going to, attending.
Good. Wes, curriculum instruction and planning?
Yeah, we met and we talked about instruction and planning. No, sorry. Sue Bass joined us, and she was speaking for herself as well as Jill Metz, proposing to expand the Pathways English program and introduce a Pathways history program. Pathways is our courses for students that are, for one reason or another, not thriving in the regular English and or history classes. I guess 12 has preceded 9 and 11, 10 followed, and now she wants to propose a 9 and 11 English courses and an 11th grade history course. And what, social studies is on its way? Is that?
That was for the social studies.
Oh, history,
the
yeah, I'm
US
sorry, yeah.
Grade 11.
It sounded, we gave her our blessing, it sounded like a good idea. We also met with Jody Wilcox, who was discussing a new pilot program for a new report card based more specifically on the standards and on the Common Core standards, based more on what's actually going on in the classrooms rather than what the other report card reports on. And it looked good. It's going to be piloted this year, and there will be feedback from parents?
Parents and teachers.
And
then we'll do a presentation here with this group after we run it through some piloting and just get some feedback. It really is to align the report card with all of the curriculum work that we've done and match it specifically to the Connecticut core standards.
Can you give me just like a for instance of like what, when I think of report cards, I'm just thinking it's been a while. U.S. history, or let's go on the elementary.
I was gonna say,
level.
so this is just elementary, it's
Yeah.
K-5.
Yeah.
So it will embed language arts standards, math standards, some very general social studies and science, and then some kind of work characteristics that are appropriate
So
for
it
the
will be A,
elementary.
B, C, D?
It
or-
goes way beyond, that. I mean,
It
there's no plays well with others on it. It's.
Okay, yeah.
So, but we're gonna do a nice presentation for the board, because I think it would be important for you to kind of see the shifts. A lot of districts did this work probably around 4 or 5 years ago, but we weren't ready yet because we hadn't revised our curriculum yet, and I thought it was unfair for teachers to work off of a new report card and assessments until we had our curriculum in place and we were solid with that. So it really is just the next step in our work.
Okay. I just want to be clear that parents truly understand it.
Oh, and there's going to be a parent
Yeah.
handbook and some parent workshops in each building, so we have a plan kind of for smooth rollout. So this first step is just to get some feedback from some teachers who've agreed to pilot it, and they'll do the existing report card and this one at the same time in March, and then we'll get feedback from them as well as parents.
And Melinda, the standards that the children are being evaluated on come directly from the Common Core?
Correct.
Or the Connecticut Core, okay.
And you've got teachers who are doing 2 sets of report cards?
So we had to continue to use the same one, of course. So it's completely voluntary.
Yeah, thank them heartily.
We are.
Because that's a lot
We've
of
gotten
work.
them some release time.
Yep.
We compensate them,
That's
of course,
great.
for the time after
Sure.
school. There are many of them that have worked on our committee and they're really invested, so.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really great. I feel like if we don't pilot it and try it out, we don't know what our problems are, and then you're in full implementation. So, I think that they're really agreeable to that,
That's
and that's
awesome.
wonderful.
And that was about it.
That was about it, yes.
Then we went away.
Thank you. Finance and operations?
Finance and Operations met earlier this evening. In your packet, you're going to see there's December and January's numbers. We're trending where we usually trend at this time of the year. We're still awaiting the state reimbursement rates. We do not have those. We did not present our budget to the town because the town asked us to go to a new format. Tina's working on that new format. Our new presentation will be Saturday, March 3rd at 8:45. Once Tina gets all the numbers together, there's some accounts that don't translate exactly, so we're just trying to break it out to that new format. She'll get that over to the committee before that presentation on Saturday, March 3rd.
See you there, nice and early. Goldie?
All right, we had a successful open house last week at the middle school, and we're just trying to work on closing out the entire project, dealing with some minor issues, also some not major but in between issues. The contractor is off-site, so we're working with the owner's rep to pay the remaining bills and just finally close out the project. Projected time to finally do everything, have the state review the information and everything, it's about June, July, but that's a moving target because it depends on how quickly the state is able to review, but June, July is kind of like the general timeline. Solar panels are still part of the project. The solar company is actually waiting for something to happen regarding the roof. So the roofing contractor is supposed to fix something on the roof and all that before they look at installing the panels. But the solar panels is still part of the project. Next meeting is Monday after next at 8:15.
Tuesday.
Oh yeah, Tuesday, sorry, because Monday is a public holiday.
Yeah, President's Day. For those of you who didn't have a chance, I know the board was there, but for those of you who outside who didn't have a chance to visit our new middle school, it's beautiful. It's such a wonderful place for learning. And for me, outside of looking at the school and seeing how it all came together, it was watching the students take us on tours and the pride that the students felt. And that really made me feel good because it's a good place of learning. They're comfortable there, they like the environment. And those that were in the higher grades, in 8th grade, it was so different for them from what they went to at 6th grade. So I appreciate all the work that the middle school committee did to
Yeah,
get
it's
that going.
interesting when you go through the whole process of you're talking about the whole thing, how it's going to be built, and you know, the furnishings, the accessories, the technology, and all. And then when you finally see it, you know, it's completely different.
It was really nice. Yeah, and we appreciated all the work Michelle Spader did. She did a great job organizing that night.
Yeah, she put everything together.
And getting that together for that night, so we appreciate all of that. And it was just nice. But my point is you haven't seen the middle school, call up the office there, Phil Piazza, and arrange a time to just go and take a tour. I may see if the middle school on its own, maybe in the summertime or springtime rather, we'll do another tour for those who could not get to our open house. It doesn't have to be full like it was before, but just a tour for many people, because I know a couple of seniors who had wanted to go, but because of the winter time didn't want to go. But if we do that again, I recommend everyone to go. Really great.
Could they do something earlier before they do the performance of Little Mermaid?
That's a
That's a good idea.
Because they're gonna, you know, people are gonna be
You get a
there.
huge crowd from that.
Right.
When is Little Mermaid, by the way?
April 2nd.
That's April, right?
Yeah.
April 2nd, yeah.
I mean, the weather's nicer, you know,
All right,
it's
we'll see
later.
if we can do something like that. We'll talk
The
with
building
Mr.
is open.
Piazza. And I think we'll still have the students do the tours. Okay, good idea. North Haven Education presentation, show?
So the spelling bee is on April 26th. And at the January meeting, Dr. Cronin was able to arrange for all the elementary school principals to attend. So actually, all the principals were there. So the foundation kind of gave an overview of the process and talked to all the principals. And since that time, it's been roughly a month, and the actual number of grant applications has increased substantially since we've talked to all the principals. So the point was to try and meet with everybody. Hopefully the administration would pass it along to the faculty and get the word out that there's money and grants there. And it seems to have been working because there's been quite a few grants that have, applications that have come through since that time. And then Matt Kersner is now a board member of the Education Foundation. He's the newest board member. And pretty much there were a couple of, or there was one grant application that came through, and that was passed. It was for Montewies School, and it was for school equipment for the recess and for playtime for the kids to actually be able to go out and play on the blacktop balls and hoops and all that sort of stuff.
Good, thank you. PTA Council? Skip over.
No, I went.
Yeah, I'm sorry, skipping over policy, because I didn't
sorry.
have anything there.
Um,
PTA Council, how was it?
So PTA Council is looking at mobile ARC technology, which is a communication tool and a tool to accept payments. Green Acres is planning to implement it soon, so the PTA Council is going to watch how that goes and see if they want to implement it district-wide.
So that means if you're doing fundraising or something, is that what you're?
Yeah,
I'm
for
not
the
sure what you
PTA,
mean.
yeah, for the PTAs, they can talk to one another, parents can talk to one another if they'd like
Okay.
to. And it also will take payments,
Okay.
which will eliminate the need for cash and checks and
Mhm.
handling money, which should be a huge benefit.
Mhm.
There's a district-wide basketball game between middle school and high school teachers and elementary school teachers on March 23rd, which I'm looking forward to. That seems like it's going to be a good time. Stacy O'Connor is coordinating the second annual 5K Color Run on April 8th. And that was a huge event last year, and it's going to be a big event this year again, it looks like. They're encouraging participation across the district. And you got to sign up by March 25th to make sure that you get your t-shirt and your color packet. North Haven Middle School is considering a viewing of Screenagers, which is meant to open a dialogue between parents and students about the perils, hazards, and advantages of living in a world full of technology. They're working on the licensing fee right now, so they're trying to raise some funds for that. And Clintonville is continuing to run their afternoon enrichment programs. So there are programs like Spanish, French, STEM, and ukulele is coming soon. So that should be really fun. The kids love them too. They're having a ball. And both Ridge Road and Montewiese are working to raise money for playgrounds. So Ridge Road is currently in the middle of a spellathon, and that's going on through the end of day on the 16th, and that's going very well. And Montewiese is having a fundraiser at Anthony's Ocean View on March 3rd, and they still do have some tickets for that, but that's going to be a comedy night and appetizers. It should be really fun.
And they should send us all schools should send the board information about their fundraisers.
I will make sure to take that back to
I
them
think
next
that's
time.
important for us to know too. Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the standing committee reports?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Any further discussion on any of them? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Dr. Cronin?
I had included in your packet the mid-year update on the district improvement plan. And just a couple of things that I wanted to highlight and then take any questions that you might have. But I think that in the area of teaching and learning, one of our greatest accomplishments, I think, during the first half of the year was the introduction and implementation of a universal screener that we administer across all elementary schools, kindergarten through 5th grade, and then we also administer it at the middle school for students who are receiving some intervention services. But kindergarten through 5th grade, we start kindergarten in January. The others, we start in the fall. We do a second assessment in January, and then we do a third at the end of the year. And it just allows us to monitor progress.
Can I just interject?
Yeah.
This first year, we have embedded PD for the teachers with it. So each time we're administering it to students, for instance, on our February 16th date, each building will have their own trainer come and spend time with grade levels, looking at the data from the fall compared to the winter, and then how can you use that to, drive your instruction for the remainder of the year. So I think that that's really been helpful and made it a smooth transition.
And I'm hoping that we'll be able to use that information to sort of monitor how our kids are doing on the district essential goals towards reaching those percentages at or above goal in reading and language arts and math. So that has that's gone off very nicely. We have continued to focus on our lowest performing 25% of our students at every building. We have scientific research-based intervention teams, SRBI teams, in every school that really monitor that. We have students that are referred and receive services as a result of it, and then we have students that are sort of on a watch list so that we don't miss them. And one member of the committee will follow that up on an ongoing basis. Our leadership, in the area of leadership, we've got a new Director of Educational and Informational Technology, which has been really a wonderful addition. And then we have a new assistant principal at the middle school. We went through that process in the fall. As far as culture is concerned, we continue our focus on learning and sharing best instructional practices throughout the district. We do administrative walkthroughs still. We'll have done one in every building by the end of the year. But the good thing also is that those are expanding, and administrators and coordinators are doing those with classroom teachers, where they're having an opportunity to observe one another and talk about their practice, which is really what it's about. And as far as communication is concerned, as a large organization, the district challenges us to be planful and thoughtful about how we communicate and when we communicate. Teachers do a wonderful job of maintaining ongoing communication with parents. Schools send home newsletters. We make every effort to communicate across the district throughout the year. And we also try to maintain open communication with the First Selectman's office and with the town finance person. I meet with them monthly, just as an opportunity to sort of talk about what's happening in education so that they're aware of sort of what we're working on. And that's been really good. At the high school, in the fall, we had given the PSAT to 9, 10, and 11th graders. 11th grade results came back, and so they're using those results. The math and English teachers have reviewed the question analysis report, so they saw where there were patterns of errors and that kind of thing. And so they're using that to prepare them for the March administration of the SAT when all 11th graders will take that. So, questions about the plan? Okay, that's everything that I had.
Thank you, Dr. Cronin. Melinda, your report, please.
I just have a couple quick things. I wanted to get back to the board around Nature's Classroom and the outdoor education numbers that we've been talking about. The elementary principals are continuing to work through plans for the 5th grade field trips. At this point, which was at the end of January, the 26th, 170 students were planning to attend Nature's Classroom and 89 were planning to attend the outdoor education day trips. So,
What's the number again?
170 for Nature's Classroom and 89 for outdoor education. So the principals continue to work out logistics, particularly around the daily field trips and bus transportation. And, you know, if you have maybe one school where 5 students are going, you don't want a whole bus for that. So there's a lot of logistics that are in play, but I commend the elementary principals because they've spent a lot of time getting this off the ground and really trying to think of all of the pieces to make sure that it's successful.
I wonder if the bus company would be able to help us with getting students from different schools
Yeah.
to, you know, one central
They've
location.
been communicating with
Great.
them around that and what the best cost-effective way of doing that is
Great.
too. And then I just wanted to mention,
Can I just ask a
Yes.
question quickly? Have we gotten any feedback as to why folks are choosing one over the other, Nature's Classroom over the outdoor education?
I don't think so. Patrick, do you want to?
No, we haven't got any feedback on why they've chosen it. Some families.
'Cause it seems like it's over a third of the families went with the outdoor education.
I can tell you my experience historically is that I've spoken with parents over the years whose children were reluctant to go away for a week and, of course, didn't want to say that when all of their classmates were going.
Sure.
So I think that this affords them the opportunity to not have to go and have some good things instead. So I would guess that that plays a large part of it.
And in terms of just like a financial side of it, it's about 80% of both our payments are up to date. So it's 82% of people for Nature's Classroom are paid up to date and 80% on the other one. So in that respect, they're almost similar.
I also think some parents, if they have any concerns about their child's immaturity or maturity level, being away from them, and that parent can't be one of the parents for whatever reason, work or family obligations, can't volunteer that week to be one, they choose to keep their child home too.
That makes sense.
And sometimes students have other activities, you know, after school that they don't want to miss also
And
if
this
they
is the
go
first
away.
year going back to
Montouise and Clintonville.
Clintonville
Well, it's the first
also.
year for Montouise ever.
And so that also may go into it. Clintonville did it up to about 5 years ago, 6 years ago?
Prior to me.
Okay, so
Prior
maybe
to
10
me,
years ago, and then they
10
stopped doing Nature's Classroom. So this year is the first year that Clintonville is bringing it back, and Montouise has ever had Nature's Classroom.
So are we seeing less Nature's Classroom participation from Clintonville and Montouise?
I don't have a school breakdown, but I can get that next month for you.
I'm just curious. It's
Yeah.
not
Yeah,
high
that I
priority.
would be curious too,
Yeah,
also to
yeah.
see.
We can get that, that's no problem. And just the other thing that I wanted to mention, and it kind of ties into what Dr. Cronin was saying, we're starting to enter into that testing season again. So currently, we're in the midst of testing our English learners with the Lost Links assessment, and this year, the state has mandated that everyone test on the computers, kindergarten through grade 12. So we're working our way through that logistically, and we have until March 9th to complete that testing. So we're well on our way. And as Dr. Cronin said, grade 11 students will participate in the SAT school day on March 21st. And then we'll begin administering the SBAC testing in April for grades 3 through 8. And CMT and CAP science assessments are different this year. They have been replaced with next generation science standards, and it is a field test this year. So we have to participate in it, but we won't get results in the same way. There'll be like more feedback for the State Department than for us. And that will be grades 5, 8, and 11. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Melinda. Tina, you want to give us your report, please?
As Brian had said, I am working on the reconstruction of the budget. The total percentage is not going to change, it's just the structure that the town has wanted, so I've been working on that for them. And we are trending about what we anticipated for to date. We're still holding a budget freeze because our insurance with the claims coming through is just something that we're just trying to pay attention to and not fall behind on or anything like that. So we're just trying to see where we are with that. And that's pretty much all that I had. We asked for one transfer, and it's for, if I remember correctly, the photography classes. They're asking for 4 enlargers, so they've gone within their.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
It's for 4 enlargers. And a printer for the photography program at the high school. So they've stayed within their budget or pulled pieces from their own budget within so that they can get these pieces. They're falling apart or not working.
So they
And
need
it's
new,
not.
but where are we, I don't understand the transfer.
The art department has stayed within their budget so that they can.
Are they like moving it to equipment or something like that?
Correct. They're
Okay.
they're staying within their
so
own
they're-
little budget.
okay, so they're taking
It's an
it from-
internal.
okay, gotcha.
Correct.
Okay.
So they can make sure that this program,
Great,
this
good.
piece
So
of
they're
the
just
curriculum
taking it from
is,
there. Okay.
is functional for the students.
And the only thing I just want to clarify to everybody, as Tina mentioned, our budget doesn't change. The town has just asked us to try and put it in the same format that they use. Our budget is different and how we write it out is different, but we're going to, that's why our meeting was delayed. Take some time, so we're going to put it together and make sure that we're on the same, we all have the same format, so that when we present it to the Board of Finance, it'll be easier for them to read and understand. So thank you for doing the extra work, Tina. Okay. And anything else?
That's all I have.
May I have a motion to approve the 2017-2018 monthly financial report, including the recommended transfer for the art department?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Any discussion? Further discussion, anything on the, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes, thanks. Public comment, do we have anyone who wants to talk tonight on anything on the agenda?
Excuse me.
Hi, Mary.
Mary White, Summer Lane. The fields came up, and so I have some updated information, because when I spoke in December, I had a lot of questions, and so I have some answers. And I think some of those answers will put some concerns that people might have to rest. So if you'll permit me to go through them. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Oh, so the sources of my answers are Courtney from Sprint Turf in South Carolina, Alan Hubbard, our Sprint Turf rep, and a meeting I had with Dr. Cronin, Tina, Phil Diana, and Steve Blumenthal. Okay, so regarding maintenance and usage logs. A usage log must be kept for each field. Usage drives the maintenance. The amount of maintenance the turf fields need depends on usage. Usage calculations are no longer required. Now it's 1 hour played equal 1 hour usage regardless of sports. It used to be something like 1 hour of football equals 3 hours of use, but no more. They changed that. Sprint Turf also changed the hours required for maintenance from 60 hours to 100. After our phone conversation, Courtney made those changes to Sprint Turf's online maintenance manual. The BOE has a computer scheduling program which tracks field usage information. The athletic director, Steve Blumenthal, will schedule the usage. The athletic director will document the usage on hard copy utilizing the 3 binders I provided. 1 turf field's usage logs, it's 1 page split in half, and 2 turf field routine maintenance logs. It was agreed there should be written usage and maintenance records because computers can get hacked, they can get viruses, and they can break down. By having written copies of the turf field usage and maintenance, we will always be able to prove, if necessary, the turf fields are being properly maintained. The athletic director will call Sprint Turf to schedule maintenance 2 weeks prior to needing it. Sprint Turf requires 2 weeks' notice for maintenance. The athletic director will document the maintenance in the Sprint Turf routine maintenance logs when maintenance is performed. Sprint Turf's Alan Hubbard wrote and gave a maintenance contract proposal in October. Did the BOE include that in the budget?
Yes.
Okay. The pricing is per occurrence. Per visit, $1,000 each time equals around 6 times per year per turf field, so about $12,000. The BOE does not have to purchase a maintenance vehicle. Sprint Turf brings the vehicle when they come to do the maintenance. A sweeper and groomer were included with the turf fields. Phil Diana is to keep the turf fields clean. When the fields are being used, there will be a maintenance employee there. Okay. Snow. Sprint Turf, Alan Hubbard stated, Sprint Turf does not remove snow. They do not recommend plowing turf fields. They don't require it, it's not necessary, and they prefer their customers do not plow the turf fields because too much damage occurs. Let Mother Nature take her course. The 2 inches snow removal language in the Sprint Turf manual refers to those customers who insist on plowing their turf fields. Turf fields temperature taking. 1 or 2 guns have been purchased. Steve said 1, you had said 2. Do we have a number?
There is one that we had, and then there's one that we've
It was
purchased.
purchased. Okay, so a total of 2. Gotcha. Okay. The athletic director, Steve Blumenthal, has the temperature gun. He will be responsible for taking the turf field's temperature when the air temperature is 80 degrees, in the 80s, 90 degrees, in the 90s, 100 degrees, or in the 100s. The athletic director will document in each of the turf field's routine maintenance log the date, writing the word temperature under other, and will document under notes the air temperature, the time the turf field's temperature was taken, and what it was. Phil Diana stated the hottest time of the day is 2:00 p.m. If play is desired before 2 p.m. and the outside air temperature is 80 degrees, in the 80s, 90 degrees, in the 90s, 100 degrees, or in the 100s, the athletic director must take the air temperature and the turf field temperature before play or practice can take place, and note all in the routine maintenance logs. It was discussed holding preseason football practices in August early in the morning, around 6:00, before the temperature rises. Meeting. Alan Hubbard recommended a meeting with all the coaches takes place before the beginning of the season. And Steve Blumenthal said that it will take place. This meeting with all the coaches will take place where they are informed about procedure and the do's and don'ts, scheduling, fees, and how the athletic director will be taking the turf field's temperatures. At this coaches' meetings, it must be reiterated that no spider-like drills or punishments are required where athletes' bare hands are placed on the turf field. Some of the do's and don'ts. Only water is permitted on the turf fields. No other drinks of any kind are allowed. No food of any kind is allowed on the turf fields. No metal cleats are allowed, only molded plastic or molded rubber cleats, no spiked heels. Okay, the budget for the turf fields replacement. Saving for the turf fields replacement must begin now. So Alan and I discussed this, and he provided a reference. He talked about New Fairfield. And he said New Fairfield was able to replace their turf fields using rental monies. How were they able to do this? Everyone who plays a sport, no matter the sport, pays to play. All who use the turf field pay. Town league teams, private out-of-town teams, and even the public school athletic teams pay to play. In addition, to be clear, even sports that do not use the turf fields pay to play. School sports like swimming, ice hockey, basketball, volleyball, all have to pay to play, even though they do not use the turf fields. It was explained to Alan, pay to play is not policy in North Haven for the public school sports teams. Alan stated the turf fields replacement budget is approximately $4.50 a square foot, and we should have $900,000 about 10 years from now. The warranty expires in 8 years. We should be ready to replace them at that time just in case. The turf field's life cycle is 8 to 10 years. If we get more use than that, that's fine. I really think a compromise is only fair regarding the fields. And the compromise would be that the BOE continues to do the maintenance. They may have the maintenance person and the Sprint Turf contract, and that the town could do the savings. I don't think it's fair to dump the entire responsibility onto the town side. And I think a lot of taxpayers agree with me. The downside of the budget, in case some of you are not aware, is facing some financial shortfalls due to monies not coming in from the state. In addition, you may not be aware, there is a public health and safety hazard of only one paramedic on per shift. There are 8 firemen on per shift. There are more calls, 60%, for emergency medical service, advanced life support, than any other. In addition, calls are coming in simultaneously. This means the paramedic goes out with the first call. If you are having a heart attack or someone is overdosing and you call 911 and you are the second or third call for service, you are out of luck. AMR will come eventually with 2 EMTs. You need a paramedic who can break the skin and provide an IV with clot dissolving medication, for example. The fire chief is asking for 8 firefighters. This will equal 2 paramedics on every shift. There are 4 shifts. And so, we as residents and taxpayers must understand, in order for town services to continue, in order to provide for critical needs, the 8 firemen, the fire apparatus per the House Bill 7047, to be in compliance with that, in order to have the money to replace the 2 turf fields in 8 to 10 years. We must understand that we will have to pay an increase in the mill rate, thus more taxes. So I just kind of want to put it out there. Sorry to be full of gloom, but these are the truth. This is the truth, people. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mary. Any other public comment tonight?
I just have a quick question about the rental fees. I'm not quite understanding why it is that people renting the turf fields wouldn't pay when basketball pays to use the gym, when Max Sinaway uses to use the baseball field. So why would there be an exception for the turf fields?
We don't believe that there should be.
Okay.
Oh, okay, we don't believe that there should be.
So there will be fees that will
There'll
be
be-
charged for the use of the fields? Because
there'll
it sounded
definitely be
almost like you were
something
saying that the rec teams might not pay, but the town rec teams are currently paying for use of facilities.
And what they're paying for is, I don't know for sure about a rental of the fees, but they're paying for custodians so I think it's at Montouise that we have basketball on.
No, they're paying facility fees. That's
Okay,
what the
but I
rental
don't have that
fees
in front of
were on that schedule.
But our key, what we all voted for several years ago was especially in the winter, we're opening the doors, we're having custodians come on overtime, we're using heat that they should be paying.
Right, I'm not disputing that
No,
they
I
should
have
pay,
just a
I just
couple
don't, I just wanted to make sure we weren't making an exception for the groups that were using
No,
the turf
no,
fields,
no.
because people are currently paying for the use of the
No
facility, so.
exceptions. You know, I'm not gonna, I'll be upfront and tell people, have I gotten calls from a few people from those organizations that may want to use the field and think that it's unfair? Absolutely, I have. And I tell them, nothing has been set in stone yet, and fees have not been set up yet. But right now, as I mentioned earlier, our fields are used for school athletics, middle school and high school athletics, pretty much all through the summer, all through the spring.
Okay. The other question, I was just a little confused about the format changing that pushed off the meeting for a month. So what is so different about the format now that it canceled the meeting?
I think that,
Because I know there was questions about the format, and Tina was doing two at one point.
right.
So I'm just trying to get at why it actually was put off.
Right. The town is asking for a breakdown of budget by school.
Oh, okay.
And so while that was all there in our budget, we're now extrapolating each building and doing it.
Okay, all right, well, that makes sense.
Yep.
Anyone else?
Quick question. Nancy Barrett, Crestview Drive. So in the local papers, both last week and this week, there were articles published regarding the proposed 2018-19 BOE budget. And I noticed two errors. First of all, in the article, Mr. Frieda is quoted as saying that North Haven has lost $922,000 in state funding in this current fiscal year versus what we had budgeted for. And this is probably what we can expect in the next fiscal year, which will lead us to severely restricting spending. So just to set the record straight, although we did realize $922,000 reduction in certain categories of state funding, we gained an unexpected $1.4 million in MRSA funding since we budgeted zero for that category. So, therefore, the net gain in state aid versus what we budgeted for this year is actually an excess of $500,000. And even though it can only be used for certain expenditures, in past years, we always included MRSA money as regular line items in our revenue budget. And in doing so, MRSA always helped to keep our mill rate in check. And it's actually misleading to say otherwise. Moreover, the $1.4 million in MRSA funding this fiscal year is on top of the $1.3 million balance that we already have. So we have a total of $2.7 million that's available to us specifically for MRSA approved uses. So why does this affect the Board of Education, may be asking? So there's two reasons. If North Haven simply files for a waiver to use MRSA money to fund specific capital improvements, then we can free up dollars from the Public Works budget to cover other costs included on either the town or the BOE's budget. And as I understand it, of the $922,000 reduction in state aid to the general fund, most of the reduction is on the town side of state aid, about $875,000. And the BOE reduction was only about $50,000, and the town, as I understand it, has offered to make this up. So ultimately, I think the BOE should be receiving everything this year that they were expecting as part of the budget. So if you could please confirm for me, does the BOE expect to receive the entire amount of money for this current fiscal year, 2017-18, that was approved in the 2017 budget referendum?
Yes.
So I think it's 51,648,899. So yes. So if so, then ultimately, despite a period of uncertainty in the fall, the changes in state aid to North Haven had absolutely no effect on the BOE budget. Now, we have no idea what will happen for 18-19 because the legislature will have the final say, but Mr. Frieda's assumption is that we'll get the same amount of aid for next year. So ultimately, in the same article, Dr. Cronin is quoted as saying the state budget concerns certainly played an important part in our budget development process. And we designed the budget with both the state and, as a result, the town fiscal challenges in mind. But really, there was no impact for this year. And if we have the same assumption going forward, that we'll get the same amount of money, hopefully there will be no impact for next year that you're currently budgeting for. So the second error was that it was reported in the paper that the BOE was asking for a 4.2% increase, and it was just a math error. In fact, it's a 4.02%, and thankfully it was corrected today. So in today's paper, it actually showed the correct number. So I just wanted to make it very clear to anyone that's watching that this was a math error that was reported last week in last week's paper, and that's not that the BOE budget has changed from 4.2 to now 4.02. And of course, this budget is in a state of progress, work in progress, but I just wanted to call that to everyone's attention. And as far as the format for the draft budget, I'm sure that the Board of Finance has a very specific format that they're looking for, but I personally would find it really useful to have one extra column that just shows the actual and budgeted amounts for the entire year of 2016-17, which is the only full year that we could look at. So then you can go across and say, this is how we're doing real spending compared to budgeted amounts on a line item basis. So I just thought that would be useful, and also to report the increases and decreases for every line, rather than the net changes for an entire category. So, for example, the total non-certified salaries, it just shows a 2.4% increase. So that doesn't capture the 2.8% dip in classroom aides, and a 9% increase in custodians, and a 20% increase in IT administrative services. So it would just be helpful if you just copied the macro across and you just showed the percentage increase. So just a couple of quick questions. So Dr. Cronin, I was wondering if you could just explain for me, what do you define as being contractual obligations, and what percentage of the total proposed budget do they comprise? I know the total salaries make up about 59.6%. But what else is in there?
In addition to the personnel contracts, we've also have computer leases, computer contracts. We have custodial company that we contract with for services at the middle school and the high school.
The insurance is contractual.
Our insurance is contractual.
Are there some services that are contractual through special services?
Yes.
Oh, there are a number of services in special ed, in special education that are contractual.
Right.
Transportation?
And then transportation has some contractual services.
And so do you have an idea of what the total percentage that contractual obligations comprise of the total budget?
I didn't bring them with me tonight.
Okay.
Look, we can get that.
If you could get that, that would be great. One other thing is the excess cost grant, which is not to be confused with the ECS education cost sharing state aid that's in our budget every year. Last year, the BOE got about $2 million in the excess cost grant, and I'm just wondering if that is something that has been renewed, or is that something that is...
We are still waiting to hear.
Still waiting, okay. The rental of buildings that's listed in the budget, item 440D, for both admin, curriculum, and high school, middle school, what buildings are we renting?
May I?
Yeah. Sure.
The admin curriculum is we rent a place on Guile Street to store our custodial equipment over there, and the rental for the high school, middle school is for I want to say it's for like the boys ice hockey, and there's some other it's mostly athletics pieces that we're renting for part of a building for, is where that falls into. But I can get you the specifics.
So you rent a whole building as opposed to you pay for ice time, or?
Well, it's part of, we have to pay a rental fee for the ice time, and that's where that's being charged to, but I can get the specifics.
So the rental fee goes to the Northford ice hockey rink. So there's two things here, I think, that what Tina's trying to say, and correct me, because I'm trying to get it. We rent a storage unit or a small area on Guile Street for the custodian equipment. We don't have that here. So that's included in there. And then for ice time, we're talking about boys hockey right now, we have to pay a rental fee to the Northford Ice Rink for
Mhm.
allowing our boys to practice and have games. Is that
There might be
correct?
some other ones included, but it's pretty much the high school, middle school, that line for 440D
Mhm.
is basically athletic rental.
Right, so that's what I'm
spaces.
wondering, is why wouldn't it just be under athletics?
Because it's part of
Just
the high
as you
school,
would
middle
have
school
to-
budget.
Mm.
That's where it
Like
falls
the
into.
swim, the pool, you know, the use of the pool or anything else?
Right,
it would
it's
be-
part of the high school, middle school budget, is
I
where
see.
the athletics is pulled.
Okay. And one last thing, is there going to be a presentation of the IT strategy that explains the expenditures in services, repairs, rentals, software licenses, and instructional supplies? Because these are hundreds of thousands of dollars that are listed in the budget. And it would be really helpful for the community to be able to see that there's a real strategy.
Yeah, the director, as I mentioned to you, started with us in July, and I asked her to use the first half of the year to really get a sense of our current state of technology in North Haven.
Okay.
And then from that, to develop a strategic plan moving forward. And so she is working on that currently, and will come forward and do a presentation for the board. And
As part of this budget cycle or after,
it
or?
would probably be, I would like it to be part of the budget cycle. I don't know that. I can't say that confidently. I need to speak with her.
It would just be really helpful in terms of being able to make some sense of a lot of these line items would be really useful.
Didn't she
Thank
go
you
for some of that at our budget workshop?
She did.
At the
She
budget-
did.
The budget workshop?
Yeah.
She did. And she came in and she really took hold of what we had put together for the IT part of it. And she, found things that either we could save money, she really went through everything and said, well, this really shouldn't be considered an instructional supply. It should be part of, something else. So she, because she came from another district, had a better handle on where to code certain things in the budget process of it. So we, had those conversations throughout the years of where she could, better utilize what we did have put aside for the IT.
Right. And I mean,
portion of
even
it.
major changes like shifting from Microsoft 365 to, Chromebooks and things like that, which hadn't been the direction we had decided to go in the past. It's a big deviation, and so it would be helpful to see how that fits into an overall strategy. So, thank you.
Danielle Morphy, Clintonville Road. These are probably questions stemming from the budget workshop, but just to clarify, where on the budget is the Sprint Turf maintenance plan? Does that fall under the custodian line item 112B?
The
Maintenance plan that,
right, no, I
Mrs.
know
White
it.
talked about.
The contract went into, hold on one second. The 430G account, there's $10,000 more in there, and that's where most of the Sprint Turf went into, that contract.
Okay. So then the $115,407 increase for this year for the custodians, that's just for a maintenance person?
Part of that is the maintenance and then their
Benefits.
percentage increase with the current staff that they have.
So we're adding one more custodian maintenance person. And do we have anything in writing that says that Sprint Turf's maintenance plan is going to remain the same amount year over year? Is that something else we have to factor in for saving for the 8 years of the warranty?
That I'm not sure.
I believe that it is the 8-year guarantee. There was an 8-year warranty, but I will find that out definitely. Danielle,
Right,
get that
because the
information
plan
for you.
is different than the warranty.
Right.
Okay, So then it says I'm just back in the non-certified staff section, something that Nancy had mentioned, just maybe calling out some of those bigger deductions and increase additions. So the aides, I heard we were dropping 3 aides. Is that from a kindergarten class, from kindergarten?
We talked about the fact that we may have to reduce paraprofessionals. Now, there were 3 added this year in kindergarten, and I referenced them. We really won't know where those reductions will come from until we see kindergarten numbers, until we know enrollment, et cetera.
Okay.
So that decision will probably be made in the summer.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Hi. I'm Kim. I have a daughter in first grade at Ridge Road. Snow days and delays. Can you remind me your policy? I know all of the Northeast was closed yesterday, and I'm sure it's a busing thing too. But just remind me exactly what makes you decide to make the calls. Why there's been so many and why we can't do early dismissal days with advance notice. Why at 5 a.m. we can't call a 1 o'clock half-day dismissal with all the half-days we have.
Couple of reasons. The decision about delayed openings or closing really is made after consulting with the police department, consulting with Public Works, consulting with our director of maintenance. The district works with a meteorologist, believe it or not, that I talk with at 20 of 5 every storm morning. And he sort of predicts for us, the group of superintendents, what he believes. But it really comes down to the buses and what the police are asking us or suggesting that we do. Now, as far as the early dismissals, there is, it's very difficult for families to, even if that decision's made in the morning, to make arrangements for early dismissal that day.
It's also very difficult for single parents and working parents at 5 a.m. to have to figure out what they're doing for the rest of the day and take a day off each week for 3 weeks in a row, or have to deal with a delay that can set them off too.
That's duly
So
noted.
it's it's a balance. I mean, they're going to be
Right.
hurt either way. Double-edged sword.
One thing I'd just like to say about that, and I'll just take today, because we had the 2-hour delay. Our middle school students and high school students are at the bus stop at 6:45 in the morning.
No, 6:30.
6:30. Goes
in
by
the
our house at
morning.
6:30.
And some of that delay has to take into account their safety. It was pretty slippery out from what I heard early this morning. We take into that when we do the delay also, because it is so early.
And the flip of that is tricky for the elementary is the early dismissal. Our little ones are then on the buses if it's getting bad in the middle of the day. Because sometimes then our middle high run gets a little bit later. So it's not a perfect science in terms of timing. Do you know what I mean? And I think that was the fair yesterday.
Yeah, the concern was that they were talking about the icing starting at noon, I think, noon, 1 o'clock, and that would have been the time that we would have been dismissing at the elementary level. So there are a lot of variables that go into deciding, and it's a very difficult decision.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
not done lightly, I assure you.
Oh, I'm sure. It was just yesterday morning. I thought it was a joke. I opened the windows and I was like, no, it's like a flood.
It was like the
I was like, it's a computer error.
Yeah.
They're so used to being sent out that it just does it automatically now. And if any of you want to donate to the Ridge Road Playground Fund, I will be happy to send you my daughter's pledge page. We're like a couple $100 off, I think, from getting our goal. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary, before I have you go up again, let me see if there's anyone else who would like to speak. Anyone else need to speak tonight? Okay, then Mary, you'll be the last before we go into executive session.
Okay, hi. So I listened, I don't know if anybody else did, but the governor presented the budget in two segments. The first one was the most interesting, and it was more doom and gloom for the state. But, I mean, aside from the 7% per gallon tax hike, the $3 per new tire tax, part of property tax is going to transportation.
What was that on new tires?
$3 per tire.
It hasn't gone into effect yet.
Yeah.
How much you saved?
Buy your tires tomorrow.
Yeah.
And also talking about tolls every mile on all state and all routes is just crazy. But I did hear it stated that they will not be reinstituting the MRSA to local towns. So if we have some in the budget, left over, I think the plan, because I heard Victor Palma was talking about, he had a critical need of a vehicle, I don't know if it's a dump truck or a plow vehicle, whatever. So I thought that I heard that they were going to utilize those funds, but what I heard, maybe I misheard, I hope, but I heard that, no, we're not going to get it. So, I mean.
Okay, thanks for that. Okay. No executive session. Okay. There is no executive session necessary tonight. Issue is off. So then, may I have a motion to adjourn our meeting at 7:50? Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Meeting is adjourned.
The preceding program is brought to you in part through a grant from the town of North Haven. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.